I was thinking about dying. And I was like, if I die, I don't have a business because it's just me. I was like, that's a really bad business model. And I was like, when I get through this, I got to change some things up.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fantastic one. Our guest is the owner of Capture Bookkeeping, and she is a Pure Bookkeeping licensee, Stephanie Kelcey. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Michael. And if I may, I just wanted to acknowledge and thank Lisa Campbell for recommending me. And also Dave for his work that he does behind the scenes. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the work that you do. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, yes, Lisa is wonderful and running Accelerate to Advisor program where so many of our Pure Bookkeeping licensees, as well as Profit First Canada, makes a massive difference. And so it's always great. I'm always like, who can we have on the show from your programs? And then Dave. We don't talk about Dave much on the show, which is
Dave needs some love.
I think Dave needs some love. And you're the first, I think, that's called out Dave. Many call out Dave after the fact. Dave's amazing. He makes sure that we find the guests and coordinate the guests, and he's instrumental in all of the writing of the show notes and making sure we have great questions to ask. And so I look like the star of the show, but the real star is Dave.
There's always someone in the background.
Right.
So
That's right. And
I see that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you for doing that. And I did say welcome back to the show, but this is your first podcast ever. So I made an error, and you made me blush saying you were the first and before we started recording. So that was fun. And so let's start off, Stephanie. Let's get our audience to know a little bit more about you. Tell us about your career journey leading up to this point.
Of course. So I was really thrown into bookkeeping back in 2006. I was working for a commercial photographer and film director named Shin Sagino at Sagino Studios in Toronto. And just before our 2-week Christmas shutdown, the studio manager up and quit. And I had been working in various capacities. I'd been helping out the manager with like some credit card reconciliations and stuff like that. But mostly I was like admin support or like any sort of like studio support that was required. And so she quit, and Shin called me into his smoky office and said, you're going to be the new studio manager. Wow. And I was like, what? I don't have any qualifications. I can't do this. And he's like, yeah, you can do it. And so over the Christmas break, I freaked out and signed up for a bookkeeping basics course through George Brown College. And then when the new year started, I found a very qualified bookkeeper to help me convert from multi-ledger for Mac, which probably is like a throwback for maybe some of your listeners, over to QuickBooks Desktop. And that's how I started bookkeeping.
Wow. So interesting. I mean, very, very much not a surprise that you were thrown into bookkeeping. So many are. And when you were thrown into this, what obviously even, saying you're in the smoky office and it's like you're going to be this studio manager and take on all these new roles. But the bookkeeping, was it something that it just stuck? Was it that you loved doing it? Or was it like, how did that look?
So I did that role for a few years. And during that time, I ended up having a couple of kids. And after my second child, when I was coming near the end of my mat leave, I realized I couldn't keep doing the 3-hour commute because we had moved out of Toronto at that point. And I couldn't keep doing the commute to the studio with 2 kids. And I didn't want to. So that's when I got thinking about what I wanted to do moving forward. And that studio manager who had quit, who is still a very good friend of mine, she had suggested, why don't you start a bookkeeping business? And I was like, that's kind of the thing I love best about my job. Like, I don't feel I'm very effective at HR. The day-to-day running of a studio, meh. But the bookkeeping piece, like, I really like that. Like, I don't have to talk to anyone. Everything makes sense. I can reconcile things. Everything balances. Everything has its place. So that's what I did. And I had the audacity to start a business in 2011. And my friend who suggested I start the bookkeeping business, she had been doing bookkeeping for a couple of clients and wasn't enjoying it anymore. So she was like, you know what, you can have my clients. And again, it all kind of landed in my lap and got handed to me. And I reached out to an accountant I knew and I said, do you have any clients that need help? And he said, yeah, I got one. So I started with like 3 or 4 clients, which was perfect to, spend some time at home with my kids and spend sometimes working. And I just kind of organically grew the business from 2011 onward as my kids got older and moved on from there.
Wow. I always love hearing that there was some passion inside of that part of your journey, is that the doors were opening for you and it was something that almost was being put in front of you, but it was something that you actually loved doing, and there was many components of that. Now, loving the bookkeeping and growing and running a business, what were those? How did all of that look for you?
Chaotic. Mm-hmm. And also, I didn't know what I was doing. I think for the first 2 years, at least, of my business, I would say I was operating it with an employee mindset. I didn't understand that I was running a business and this was me and people were looking to me to be the expert. I was still of the mindset of, well, like, why aren't they telling me what to do?
Interesting.
It took me a while to make that switch. And I'm like, all right, I'm the one who's got to tell them what to do, right?
I have some exciting news for you. The Successful Bookkeeper podcast now has a free global virtual event called the Successful Bookkeeper Summit. That's right, it's a 2-day online conference featuring 20 incredible speakers from the bookkeeping, accounting, and business worlds, some of which include best-selling author of Profit First, Mike Michalowicz, and pricing expert Mark Wickersham, to name just a few. At the summit, you'll receive tips on how to price your bookkeeping services, market your business, hire great staff, and so much more. It all begins on December 2nd, 2021. To secure your free spot, visit thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. Again, that's thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. Don't miss this chance to rise up and change your bookkeeping business in 2022. Register today, and I'll see you at the summit. Now, let's get back to our interview. That's right. And, it's often that when we're having these conversations, the thought pattern can be that, an E-Myth, an E-Myth bookkeeper, the talk of the technician and doing the work, right? It's like you're doing the work and you're the technician and moving away from the technician. But this is a kind of a nice little subtle difference in that the mindset of the employee from the perspective is like, I'm waiting for you to tell me what to do, which I think probably happens in a lot of, in every small business where an owner who used to be an employee becomes an owner and now is locked in that. And it's a dangerous place.
Mm-hmm.
So what had you have the transformation to being the owner and owning the ownership? Were there any stories around how that transformed?
I can't think of anything specifically. I remember one client I was working with that was really pushing me, and I just had this sense of like, why aren't they just telling me? Like, why are they looking to me? And something just twigged, and I was like, oh right, I'm not their employee. They've hired me to take care of this. So I need to shift that perspective.
So interesting. There's a conversation right now because of the pandemic in that, people are working from home and everybody's kind of scattered to their homes, to shelter, to all this. And so it's really dynamically changed the work setting globally. And so there's this huge shift. I think it was Mr. Wonderful. I was listening to the fellow Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank and Dragon's Den, who was saying, we're not in a 9 to 5 world, we're in an outcomes world. People want to pay for outcomes. And so that's similar to what you're talking about, is that they don't want you to come and work for them for a number of hours. They want you to produce an outcome for them.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting perspective.
Yes. And I think the sooner you get that, and I'm sure all of us have to be reminded of that, is that we're producing outcomes in the world. And the sooner we get that, the sooner we can actually drive more value and have more enjoyment, because that's what they want. We're connecting them with what they want, and therefore it'll be a lot more enjoyable.
And there's also a piece there, I think, sorry if I can just say,
yes,
around the discipline required to work from home as well, because I had never done that when I'd started my business. So that was a new piece as well, and a very hard lesson, a very hard thing to do. So I don't know how people have managed to do it, with kids being home and everyone being home, and having to learn how to have that discipline to work from home during COVID has just been very challenging. Very
challenging for many. And yes, like for you and myself, I've worked from home for years. It's kind of like, well, this is just the way that it is. But I remember the early days of that. And when I went through it, I didn't have children. So it was actually a far better environment, less distractions. And like I said, now it's like the tables turned. Very challenging. So you got through that. You've been at this now. You said you started in 2011. So that makes it 20 years now.
10 years.
10 years? Where's my math here? So 2011, I'm thinking, yes, okay. I can't do math today for some reason. So it's been a decade.
Mm-hmm.
What were the obstacles over the years, some of the big ones that you had to overcome?
So the biggest obstacle in my life and career has been breast cancer. Back in 2014, I was diagnosed with DCIS, which is a non-invasive breast cancer. And at that time, my children were, my son was just about to turn 4 and my daughter was 6. I was 40 years old, perceived myself to be a healthy person and had no family history, and really got blindsided with this diagnosis. So that started a very challenging, that ended up being about a 5-year process go through all of that.
And that's a challenging thing for in any circumstance, but stack on top of that, you're running a business. I mean, business is difficult as it is, but now you've got a critical illness that you're dealing with. What had you continue with the business?
So when I first got diagnosed in 2014, I decided not to pursue traditional treatment options. My GP originally told me when she gave me the diagnosis, she was like, you know what, this is like the best kind of cancer to get. It's non-invasive. It's stage 0. You'll just have a quick little surgery and you'll carry on with things. And I was like, okay, great. I can do that. And then I saw surgeon after surgeon after surgeon, and they all told me, no, actually, it's not a simple surgery. You have to have your breast removed. You need a mastectomy. And I just had this really strong instinct that may remove the cancer, but it wasn't going to solve the problem, because I had to face that I wasn't the healthy person that I thought I was. And so I started to pursue natural treatments, and I worked with a holistic healer for 2.5 years and really learned a lot about myself and self-care. And so during that time, those 2.5 years, I didn't feel the need to change my business at all, because I wasn't aggressively pursuing treatment options that would prevent me from working. I was doing, like I said, very natural things. Basically, I went on like a 2.5 year detox, and an emotional detox, a mental, spiritual, and physical. And I didn't tell the kids because I wanted to protect them from that. And so it was a challenging period to go to my partner and my family and the doctor even and say, I'm not going to do what you're telling me I need to do, because it doesn't feel intrinsically like the thing that I need to do. I need to go do this other thing. And I didn't get a lot of support in that, because people were obviously afraid for me. So it was a challenging time in that, but I continued to work with one of the surgeons that I had seen, and we monitored everything every 6 months. So I could stay on top of it from that perspective as well. So I kind of felt like I had like 2 feet in 2 different worlds. And it was a bit of a juggling act, but like I said, I didn't feel like my business needed a break during that time. And it really gave me something else to focus on as well, which was helpful.
Amazing. And so you went through that. You've now been how many years? This is 7 odd years that you've been living through this. And how has that journey improved your business?
I think it has given me some courage to do things I wouldn't have done before. Saying no to doctors was very difficult. Telling my family, that I wasn't going to do the thing that the doctor said, because you do what the doctor says, right? That was very difficult as well. And so I do feel like it has given me more courage to be a little bit more bold and comfortable in who I am.
Yes, just hearing that. When you're the level that you're dealing with those things, saying no to a customer is small potatoes compared to what you've had to deal with. Now, you have been in business for a decade. you mentioned Lisa Campbell at the beginning of the show. You've worked in her program, Accelerate to Advisor. What had you at that point? You're growing your business, and you've gone through this challenge with your health. You kind of a transformational journey, really, in taking on your own health and well-being. And then at what stage were you at when you decided to up your almost investment of both time, energy, and money into your business?
Right. So that came in 2020, which came after the second half of the cancer story, which began in 2017 when, as I mentioned, I had been monitoring everything with the surgeon. And in February of 2017, it was revealed that there was an invasive component to the cancer now. There was something new, and there was actually something new in both breasts at this point. So in that moment, when the doctor said, you know what, we're looking at, this might be a stage 3 cancer because you've got enlarged lymph nodes, I just looked at her and I was like, okay, I'll do the surgery. And she said, no, you're not doing surgery. She's like, you're going to see another doctor because you've got to do chemo. And I said, you never mentioned chemo before. And she was like, well, things are different now. So 2 weeks later, I was hooked up to a chemo machine, and I did that for 16 weeks. And then I had the double mastectomy. It basically started 15 months worth of treatment, a double mastectomy, 5 weeks of radiation, a year of immunotherapy. And so to answer your question, when I was on chemo, I would go through periods where I couldn't work. I had gone to all of my clients at the beginning of that process and said, listen, this is going down. This is happening. I intend to work through this, because at that point I felt like I had to. We had started a home renovation in December of 2016. So like 2 months before all of this happened. And I just felt like I needed the income. But to answer your question, when I was lying in bed one time, bedridden, recovering from chemo, and like rubbing my 3 brain cells together that I had, I was thinking about dying. And I was like, if I die, I don't have a business because it's just me. I was like, that's a really bad business model. And I was like, when I get through this, I got to change some things up. And so I didn't actually finish, like I finished my treatments in 2018. Then in 2019, I did breast reconstruction, which was 2 surgeries over, it ended up being an 11-month period in between surgeries. And then it was early 2020 when I discovered Lisa's program through you actually. And I was like, right, this is exactly what I need to take things to the next level.
Wow. Remarkable that you had that revelation going through and lying there, getting all of these treatments and going through this. And I mean, that there is the spirit of the entrepreneur at its finest hour. When I get out of this, I'm going to improve my business. I mean, remarkable.
Thank you. It was kind of an aha moment when I wasn't having a lot of thoughts. I just wasn't capable of a lot of thought, but that came to me and I was like, oh, yeah, this isn't a good business model at all. Because I'm thinking about my children and legacy and leaving things behind, because these are kind of natural places to go to when you're dealing with a critical illness.
And so you had that aha moment. This is not a good business model. What have you cooked up in your mind as to what is a good business model?
Well, thank you to Lisa's program. Something that's scalable and will serve more people than just what I can do. So I understand now the need for a great team, and I'm looking for a bookkeeper if anybody wants to get in touch. But not necessarily, like, thinking back to my studio days and when I was thrown into that management role, also understanding, like, I don't love HR, so I don't want a huge team. Like, why don't I just have a small team and some really high ticket clients, some really great, valuable clients, and work from that place?
I love that. And, this speaks to vision, your vision, and you're the entrepreneur. You get to cook up, and I said cook up in your mind. You're the one that's cooking up the future and the vision that you have for your business. And such an opportunity and a gift, really, to have had that revealed to you is that you're building a business that suits you. And that looks different for everyone, but we're also on a journey. We have no idea what tomorrow will look like or what you'll want tomorrow. But today you've got your vision and you've jumped into this. So when you came out of the, I guess when you were on the other side of battling cancer, that would have been what year?
So I finished treatment in 2018. And in May 2018, and I often say that's when the real work began, because that's when me and my partner and my kids were just like, what happened? What just happened? What was that? And, I feel like that's when the emotional, mental, spiritual work around healing the trauma of treatment that, not just physically what I went through, but also what my family experienced. I don't think that gets the supporting roles that people play when someone is ill. Those people often get forgotten. And I have a massive amount of compassion for their experience, because it is a very difficult experience to witness someone you love going through that and not having a lot of control. So that's been a major healing process since finishing treatment. And we've only been able to do that since treatment ended, Michael, I've completely forgotten your question. I've gone off on a tangent, I think.
It's perfect. It's actually, I was asking you when you were telling me, you were answering the question, which was after the treatment, when the battle ended for treating the cancer, you actually begun the journey of healing not only your body, your mind, your spirit, but as well all of the support crew that were around you while you went through that. And it had me actually thinking about something I heard recently from, he's a speaker, Jordan Peterson. He's famous for some, anyways,
he's a bit of a controversial figure.
He's a controversial figure. I just recently, through TikTok, yes, I'm on that app. I love it. It's got a lot of personal development stuff. He comes up in my feed all the time. And I didn't know him from Sunday, but he's got some very wise teachings. And one of those teachings was this whole concept of evolution of ourselves as humans through our lifetime, in that where we grow is through trauma. And not trauma that everybody would think, trauma is like getting in an accident or something like it, but anything that stresses our bodies, stresses our minds, stresses our souls, we actually are altering our DNA. and it's shaping a brand new human being. And so, and he's speaking in the terms of, if we think about like children, what children have to go through and how they shape their lives, it's actually, they're being shaped physically, mentally, and spiritually throughout their lives. It's creating new human beings all the way through. So who you are today is, you're a different human being, physically, mentally, spiritually, than you were before the trauma of dealing with cancer. But you're also, your whole support crew around you, your family, your children, your partner, they all became new human beings because of it. And so what does this new human being can actually take on new things that other human being could not. And so what's it all for? We don't know. Nobody knows. But an interesting take, an inspiring take, I think, in that it's both, detriment, but also a gain to go through anything in our lives. It's how we deal with those things. And so it's interesting now that you've taken, curious to know where you see what you've taken from that journey, and not just your journey, but your whole support crew into your business. You came out of that, you said May 2018. And
That's
so
right.
Between then and 2020, when you started this, pretty big program with Lisa, I'm interested to hear a little bit more on that side.
I appreciate all of what you just said. It's so true how these things shape us, and these experiences, we have to allow them to change us, because otherwise, what's the point? So from 2018 to 2020, I switched most of my clients to cloud-based. I incorporated. I had gotten rid of most of my PETA clients like early on in the diagnosis process, and because I had decided, there's only certain people I have time for in my life right now, and pain in the butt clients weren't on that list. And I've always since then become very particular in the clients I will bring on after going through Lisa's program, and am even more particular about that. So those were kind of a few leveling ups for me. Getting everyone cloud-based was a big one. And then incorporating was more of a mental shift, in that this isn't just going to be me, this is going to be outside of me.
Mm. So when you got all of that prepared and you heard about Lisa's program, what did you go into that program thinking it would do for your business?
All the kind of niggly things at the back of my head that I was like, oh yeah, I got to figure that out, and I got to figure that out, and I got to figure that out. That program was just laid out, rolled out like a red carpet. And I was like, there it is. It's all there. she all those little things she had figured out, and then some. There was a lot more in there that I hadn't considered and hadn't thought about. So that program was really great. Really great.
And now after the program, so you were in the program are you still in the program?
No, I'm done.
So you finished the program. Where are you at now? What's the mountain you're climbing now in your business?
So I work much more efficiently now. I have all of my clients systematized through the Pure Bookkeeping system. I've got everything using in ClickUp, and I'm looking to bring on an employee, as I mentioned. And I have just started Profit First certification, which is really exciting, because this is what I feel like is the thing that's going to get me excited about helping clients again. After 10 years, the day-to-day bookkeeping piece it's a bit tired. I'm ready to move on from that. I'm ready to do more and be of greater service. So I'm really excited about this Profit First certification and moving into that world.
Very exciting. I absolutely love it. And I love what it does for small business owners, and super exciting, super valuable, and super great for both ends, both your business and for the businesses you serve. Now, a lot of people, we've had Lisa on the show lots of times. We've had lots of people who've gone through the program, likely listeners thinking, what's this all about? Having gone through it and done it in your program, what would you say to people that are considering doing Accelerate to Advisor?
The first thing I would say is, are you ready for this? Because it is a massive amount of time. It is a very big commitment, and you have to be ready to level up in that way. If you're a brand new bookkeeper or your business is relatively new, I don't know that it's the right program for you. But if you're ready to really step up and move on from compliance, I think it's an absolute must.
I always love hearing that. And I think you were working on preparing for that program for years. And it makes a lot of sense. What you said about streamlining your practice, going to the cloud, getting rid of some PETA clients. I mean, all of that led to you having the bandwidth to actually take the program on. I mean, the program doesn't just drop it over your head and it, changes the color of your hair. You have to do the work. And there's a lot of not only work to do, but thinking, and, it requires something. So you prepared for that for some time. And I'm always curious too, to hear what that click was. Did you attend her free, the 9-day or 5-day program, masterclass?
Yes.
Did you attend the masterclass? Is that something, who should attend that free masterclass?
I think anyone who's curious should get in there, regardless of whether you think you're ready for it or not, because that just gives such a great overview of, and it also gives you a really great introduction to Lisa and how she is and her energy, which is just amazing. So even if you're a little bit curious, I would say block off that time and do that program. She does do it a few times a year now. So I think I was not intending to sign up at the beginning of that. I was just kind of like, oh, here's another thing. Let me check it out and see what it's all about. And within, I think it was the second day, I was like, this is exactly what I need.
Lovely. Absolutely love it. And of course, we'll drop a link to Lisa's website. You can check to see when the next masterclass is coming up, or the intake of the Accelerate to Advisor program. Both wonderful. I mean, Lisa has been a long-term licensee of Pure Bookkeeping. I feel like we're family. It's so lovely to have people like her and yourself in our community. And, I couldn't do it without Lisa. I mean, she's just, there's so many people in our community that we just couldn't do it without people like her. So it's always lovely to talk about it and celebrate those people and those programs that are running. And of course, it's the spirit of the Successful Bookkeeper. It's a community that we bring each other together to share stories like you have today, Stephanie, to inspire people, but also, look, so much learnings in this episode about going through something very serious in life, that a lot of takeaways. And sometimes, we have to go through those in order to get those, to really get those takeaways. But hopefully we can get a lot of takeaways where we don't have to go through challenging things. We can skip all over those things. But it's this community, and of course, together we rise, which is the theme of our summit coming up. The Successful Bookkeeper Summit is about working together, learning together, and sharing together, such that we can all be more successful on our journey towards whatever that success looks like. So, Stephanie, this has been fantastic. So thank you so much on behalf of all of our listeners for coming on and sharing the behind the scenes look at your business and what you did about it to move yourself forward.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And we will look forward to, I'm sure, having you back to share how things go and your journey into transforming your business with profit first.
That would be amazing.
Yes. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.